Hey and welcome on this YouTube channel called Uhrenhandler. My name is Johannes and today we're gonna try to repair a watch, as always. Today we've got something special on the bench. It's a watch from a friend, Sebastian. He contacted me a few weeks ago and told me, yeah, I have a watch from, he thinks, his grandfather or even older. What is it? Grandfather? Great grandfather, I think it is. And the watch isn't running. You see, it's called a BCP, which stands for Burckhardt Size Pforzheim. This is a watch company from the German city Pforzheim. It's in the south of Germany and is, I would say, it's famous for watches. But I will tell you later more. So as you can see, the watch is not running. I was shaking the watch quite a few times. Often this helps to get the movement run a few seconds, but this time this did not happen. So let's have a look what the movement does look like, and maybe we can have a look why it's not running. When you open a watch, first it's always interesting to see if there are any watchmaker's marks at the back, which you can see here. It's sometimes a bit different to interpret these marks, but you can read that there were some marks from the early 50s. So this watch was serviced in the 50s, so maybe this watch is from the 1930s or even 1930s, I think. Yeah. Even using the blower did not help to make the watch running again. And when winding the watch, you could hear that there were some weird sounds, and we will take on that later. So first things first, we need to get the hands off the watch. I mean, you can see the dial here. I think the dial is in a beautiful condition. Sebastian told me he tried to clean the dial a few years ago using isopropanol alcohol. This is not a good idea. You will see it later. I will show it to you. If you are planning to clean those dials, just use water. That's the best you can do. Dial restoration is some kind of a really complex topic, so if you're not a specialist, just use some water and a Q-tip, and this is all you should use. Okay, so as you can see, this watch has a small second and not a central second. This means minute and hour hand are central in the dial, and the second hand is below, which you can see here. This is some kind of a retro watch. Old watches often had that, but the new watches don't have this. So, okay. Now we're gonna take apart the dial. Or we're gonna lift the dial up. There are those little screws. You have to loosen them, and then you can take off the dial. Do you see the dial between 2 and 4 o'clock? There is some kind of area where the painting is gone, and I think this is the area where Sebastian tried to clean it with isopropanol alcohol. So, okay, let's store the dial. We won't touch it because I think it's beautiful and I will leave it like it is. And we're gonna have a look if we can get the movement running again. I think this is a task which is difficult enough. So first things first, we're gonna take apart the dial side, or the first things, not the dial set in general, because first we're gonna take the balance apart, or we will remove the balance from the movement. The balance is a delicate, or the most delicate part of the movement, so it's always good to remove it when working on the movement. And I'm not sure if the balance is okay. At a first glance, it looks okay to me, and I cannot see big problems. What I am feeling here is that the balance spring is really, how should I say, soft. please help me, what is the English word I could use? It's really elastic, so there are balance springs which are really strong, and then there are some which are really soft, I would say. And this one is one which is really soft. I don't know if it's because it's old or if it's general like that. So now let's remove the bridge for the pallet fork. The pallet fork is this little, like the name says, fork-shaped thing. And now we will have a look at the winding. And you've already heard it. There was again this sound which indicates that there is a problem regarding the winding mechanism. I have had those problems in the past, and there are a few things you can do, but you will see it later how we will address that. So now we're gonna take apart the ratchet wheel. This is the big wheel. The ratchet wheel is, have you seen it? I tried to wind the watch to see if the wheels are spinning, but when I was winding it really, really soft, the screw broke. So maybe that's a reason why the watch did not run. Maybe there was something stuck. However, now we have the problem. There is a screw in the barrel arbor, and we have firstly take that broken screw out, and secondly we have to find a replacement. Luckily, I have quite a few hundred movements here in my workshop, and there is most of the time I can find things. But now we will have a look. If I spin the barrel, okay, now do you see? The wheels are turning or spinning, but not really. I don't know. Maybe there's a lot of gunk in the jewels and also at the mainspring barrel. So it's always a good first thing, just clean everything and have a look if the wheels are spinning freely. So all we can do now is take the movement apart and always have a look if something changes. You know, you're removing a wheel and then you see, okay, is it spinning more freely now? Because then you can say, okay, maybe this wheel was the source of the error. This is some kind of a, I don't know if you could say, analytical approach to the problem. But I try to work my way through the movement like that. Yeah, that's it. But don't get me wrong, I'm not a specialist, I'm an amateur. So this is just a hobby for me. So I don't know if this method is good or bad. Just for me, sometimes it makes sense. Yeah. Meanwhile, we are disassembling the dial side. You can see here, this is the keyless works. The keyless works is named keyless because in the past you would have need a key to wind and set the watch, but at the beginning of the 20th century watchmaker were really innovative and developed the keyless works. So you have a crown and you can use it for setting the time and winding, and you don't need a key anymore. So that's the reason. Okay. What you can see here is the setting lever spring. It's always a bit tricky because sometimes the spring flies through the room where you're working and this is not good. Trust me, I've spent many hours on the bottom of my workshop. So, but nevertheless, now we're getting out the broken screw, and I was really lucky. As you can see, the broken screw is not really tight, so it's really loose, and I can simply use my tweezers to work them out. And yeah, there you can see. And this is always a problem because if it's really tight, you cannot use a screwdriver. Then maybe you have to drill it out, or you have to glue something on top to turn it out. Yeah, that's always a bit different or difficult. This is the mainspring barrel, by the way. This is the source of the problem, but we will see, or later we will see if it really was the problem. And finally, we have finished the disassembling so far. You can see the watch is really, really dirty. So I think maybe gunk is the reason why the watch did not work. But yeah, spoiler, there were a lot of other problems on this watch. And we will see that later on. So now we have to replace the broken screw. It just took me a few minutes to look for another or a new screw. Or you can see the screw is not new. It has some oxidation on the lower side, but that's not bad at all. So now we're gonna take apart the mainspring barrel. The mainspring barrel is the barrel which contains the mainspring, as the name says. And you can see this is the barrel arbor. This is which hooks into the mainspring and gets turned, and therefore the mainspring winds or gets winded. And you can store the energy in your watch. When unwinding the mainspring, look at my fingers. They are really dirty now. So also the mainspring was really dirty. I don't know. The latest watchmaker mark at this watch I found was from the 1960s. So possibly this watch hasn't had a service in 50 years. I don't know, but it could be. So now we're going to clean the watch. I told you that it's really dirty, so we have to clean it. For cleaning, I have my small little containers here, which I'm using in a certain order, which I'm used to. So there are those little baskets where I'm putting the delicate parts in, like the wheels. You know, the wheels have small pivots which can break. So I want to store them into these small baskets. And the bigger baskets are for the parts which are not so delicate, like screws and bridges and all those stuff. Yeah. Nevertheless, I always try to keep the parts in a certain order, so when I've finished cleaning, I know which part belongs to which. But I often get the question, how do you remember which part belongs to which position? Yeah, it's really simple if you're taking those videos, to be honest. Otherwise, you can take photos. Okay, now everything is sorted, and we're gonna use my small little cleaning machine from Glashütte. I programmed a Raspberry Pi and switched some motors, and then you can see I can do my own little cleaning, which I programmed, so I can decide how long it will rotate, in which direction it will rotate. And yeah, keep in mind this cleaning here is fast forwarded, so this is double the speed of the reality. So yeah. As a second cleaning, I'm always using an ultrasonic device. I have two on the left and on the right. The one on the left is one I have, I think, 20 years right now. And I'm just using this for case and everything, which is not that delicate. There is just some kind of a water with special cleaner in it. And the ultrasonic cleaner on the right is for the movement parts. There I have my Emma Red cleaner in it. And it's good because I can clean the parts at elevated temperature of about 40 degrees Celsius. So, but not all parts are getting cleaned in my cleaning machines. Some parts are so delicate I will clean them by hand, such as the pallet fork and the balance. The balance has the balance spring, which is the most delicate part of the watch, and you can see me here how I will clean it in a solution called One Dip. And I'm just leaving it there for a minute, let it soak, and meanwhile I'm cleaning the mainspring. The mainspring is also something I have learned from other watchmakers. It does not belong into a cleaning machine because it can break. I know many watchmakers do that, and I think it's okay, but I'm a really scary, or I'm a person which is scared really, really fast in terms of damaging things. So I'm using the hand cleaning method here. I don't know. Maybe I could do it the other way too, but it's okay. So now we have cleaned everything. You can see it here. It's the pellet fork, the balance spring, and the mainspring. I'm just using my hand blower to dry it, and yeah, this is it. Now we're gonna start the assemble, and I've put this sequence in here just to get you know. It's also always important to use new thimbles. I hope this is the correct English word. I'm not sure. In Germany it's called, or in German it's called Fingerlinge, and there is also English word Fingerling. Please help me if you know it. Using new thimbles for the assembly is important because you don't want to get the dirt from the disassembly to the new cleaned parts, right? So first things first again, we're gonna assemble the mainspring. I have my small little Bergeron mainspring winder set here. It's really expensive, to be honest. I'm using it for winding the mainspring in this little device. And when it's winded, I'm just going to transfer it into the mainspring barrel. You will see it in a few seconds. You can see me here, how I wind the mainspring into the winder. Always be gentle. That's something which looks so easy on video, also from other creators. But it's not that easy. You need experience. The first times you do it, you will probably mess it up. But after a few times, you're getting more experience and then it will work. So when the mainspring is winded, we can insert it into the barrel. We need some special grease. This is mainspring grease. I always try to show you the grease I'm using. If you have any questions, just write it in the comments. I always try to help you. So we're just using a little amount of grease. And now we've inserted the mainspring. This is one of the best feelings in watchmaking. I forgot to oil the bottom of the barrel, but I can do this afterwards, as you see here. And then we can insert the mainspring barrel arbor. This is sometimes also a bit finicky, but for this mainspring, it went in pretty easy. So now we can close the mainspring barrel with the lid. There is also this little 3D printed tool. Keep in mind, watchmaking is something, you can find a tool for everything, and it's great, to be honest. I think every watchmaker loves his tools. At least I do. I don't know if everybody's like that. Sometimes it's a bit expensive, I know, but those tools are often a huge help. So now I'm also oiling the upper part of the barrel, arbor. You can see here. Always trying to oil everything as careful as possible. And now we can start the assembly. The assembly is pretty much just the disassembly, vice versa. But when a watch was not running, it's really exciting. Yeah. We're gonna try to oil everything. This one is the hole for the screw, which holds down part of the keyless works. You have to insert it before placing the bridge for the mainspring barrel. Otherwise, you are a bit frustrated later. Trust me, I've forgotten that screw quite a few times in the past. So now we're working our way through the watch. Sadly, my camera was not working when I was assembling the drivetrain. So you just see me screwing down the screws of the drivetrain bridge here, but it was not at all difficult. So I think you did not miss out quite much. So now we're using our anti-spread. Anti-spread is for certain parts of the watch, like the pellet fork here and the escape wheel. When using anti-spread, there is a thin little coating on those parts which are not, how should I say, easy to oil, or those coating prevents the oil from spreading, therefore it is called anti-spread. And you want to wear off the coating on certain surfaces or areas which are in contact. And then you want to oil those areas where no anti-spread is. So if there is oil, it will not spread to the areas where anti-spread is still on the parts. So therefore, we coated the escape wheel and the pallet fork, and later in the process we let the watch run dry for a few minutes, so the anti-spread will wear off at the contact faces, and then we can oil them. I don't know if it was easy to understand, but that is the way the anti-spread works. So before installing the balance and the pallet fork, we are gonna oil the drivetrain. I know some people do it later on. I always like to do it when the pallet fork is not installed, because then I can spin the wheels freely. And maybe you have already noticed after cleaning and oiling now, you will see it in a few seconds, everything is spinning freely. So this is good news. So maybe we can save this watch. Yeah, as you can see here, I'm using different oils. For the escape wheel and the balance, I'm using Möbius 9010, and for the other wheels, I'm using Möbius HP 1300. So let's screw down the bridge for the escape wheel and oil the lower part of the balance. This is this part. There we also used Möbius 9010. It's a thinner oil. So in general, you can say if a wheel is spinning fast, use thin oil. If a wheel is spinning not that fast, use a thicker oil. So it's not that easy because it's some kind of a velocity and pressure thing, but in general, it's a good advice. So now we're installing the click. This is the click spring. On top of this, we are inserting the click. The click is there for preventing the ratchet wheel to turn into a specific direction. You will see me inserting the ratchet wheel in a few seconds. And the click allows the ratchet wheel only to move into one direction. And this is basically what is the mechanism behind winding a watch. So when you are winding a watch, you always hear those clicking sounds, and what you hear is what you hear is the click. So it's named according to the sound it makes. Remember, this is the screw we had to replace because it broke when we disassembled it. Right now, I'm not sure if it broke because it already was broken or because I was not gently enough. I mean, I was really, really gentle when trying to wind the watch, but I don't know. Maybe it was also my fault. This is highly possible, to be honest. I'm making quite a lot of mistakes. So now we're inserting the pallet fork, and after inserting the pallet fork, we are winding the watch. You can wind the watch, and this is what I tried at first when the screw broke. You can wind the watch by simply turning the screw. And now you will see if it is working. The pallet fork will jump if I'm just touching it slightly. Do you see? It's jumping. I'm just touching it barely on the ends, and it will jump. So now we need to oil the balance. This is not that easy because this balance has not a shock spring. So therefore, we have to remove the balance wheel. And on the balance wheel, there is the balance spring. And this is the most delicate part of the watch. And it's not that easy. We have to remove this arm. This arm is for regulating the watch later. And then we have to loosen this screw, and it's so tiny. Remember, this is a microscope. The screws are so tiny. It's really incredible. And now we have to push out this little pin, which is mounted on the hairspring. And I was just a bit off cam here, I'm sorry. But you can see me, I have to push really hard. And I didn't like that. But we will address that problem now. I'm just using a small little brooch. And I'm not taking away material at all. I'm just removing dirt which is in there. So the pin will get in there more easily. This is a huge advantage if we assemble the whole thing. Okay, now this is the balance cock, and there is the balance jewel on this. We have to loosen the screws, and again, the screws, they are so tiny. Really, if you don't lose a lens or a microscope, you barely can see these screws. And yeah, so now if we have loosened the screws, we can remove the cock, and therefore is the balance jewel, the cap jewel. And this one is which will need to get cleaned because there is old oil on it, and we are also using cleaning the upper part. And after cleaning, we are using some watch paper, or watchmaker's paper. This is the white paper you can see here. It's just a paper on which you can rub the jewels to get the dirt off. And as you can see, I've also cleaned the balance with the balance hairspring, because yeah, there is also sometimes dirt on it. Now we're using some packwood to rub off the dirt on the jewel, and after that we are oiling it and installing the balance cock again. So now I was trying to tell you something about the watch, and I think I didn't tell you what kind of movement this watch has. This watch has a PUW, or Pew, I don't know how you would pronounce it, 500 movement, which is manufactured movement from Pforzheim. So this movement is also from the city where this whole watch is from. And yeah, so this is a really rare movement in my opinion. And yeah, it's some kind of German watchmaking tradition. You know, I think if you're thinking of German watchmaking at the first instance, I think everybody thinks of Glashütte. But in Pforzheim there was also a part of the German watchmaking tradition. I mean, it's not as big as in Glashütte, but you should not forget about that. Okay, so now we have to get the screw in, which is for the pin of the hairspring, and now you can see me inserting the hairspring again. And you see, this is so delicate. Everything is done under a microscope, and believe me, sometimes this takes me just to insert the balance with the balance hairspring 30 or 40 minutes, and you have to do it quite a few times, especially if you have to repair certain things, but I won't spoiler, you will see it later. So now we have the pin in the hole, and this one is going in there pretty well, and now we are closing the regulator. You can see me turn it. Yep, and now the balance is freshly oiled, and we can insert it into the movement, and this is the moment of truth, if we can get the movement working again. Maybe just be gentle, you know, the balance is really, really delicate. It wanted to start running, but it did not really start. So maybe. Oh yeah, it works. Oh yeah, it works. Great. Woo, that's a good feeling. You know, it was not running at all. Everything was gunked with dirt and stuck in everything, and wow, now it works. Great. So now we can see if the winding mechanism is also working. As you remember, there were those strange sounds when winding, and I didn't like it. So maybe this was also just a problem of cleaning everything. And yeah, we can try it, and we'll see it. If it does not work, we have to address that problem. So this is the winding wheel. This screw is left threaded, as you can see. In 99% of all watches, this is the case. So now we can assemble the dial side. First of all, we have to press on the cannon fit, which is press fit. Just press it on. And then This is the sliding clutch and the wheel which is connected to the sliding clutch, and the upper left wheel here is responsible for winding. So what I was thinking of was, when winding the watch, the upper wheel, this one, is jumping because it's maybe not in a good condition, and therefore it's not, the connection between those two wheels is not clean enough, or is too old and too used to get the winding mechanism clean. But I've had a look at this wheel, and in my opinion, it does not look bad at all, and the upper wheel does also not look too bad at all. And so I was really, really curious to see if I could address that problem. So now we will assemble the keyless works. You can see me here screwing down the setting lever. And now we're gonna install the setting lever spring and the yoke spring. Everything has to be oiled. I'm always trying to do this in one step, so that there is oil at every position. You can see me here. I'm also using the red oil. It's called Möbius HP 1300. I already told you. And now we're gonna insert the yoke spring. The blue grease, it's not oil, it's a grease, is for the heavy contacts, I would call it. So like the yoke spring, therefore, there is a contact with a lot of pressure and not much movement. There you can use those grease-like oils. Now we're gonna insert the yoke spring. I'm always using a second tweezer or stick to keep the mainspring fixed. But this has the disadvantage that you can't see what I was doing here. But I hope you can imagine what I was doing. Okay, now just install the transmission or intermediate wheels. And now we are positioning the setting lever spring and the setting lever here. And then we will see if everything works at the winding mechanism. Of course, we have to use our grease here too, because we want to keep the movement clean and good, smooth running as long as possible. Okay, you see it works, everything works, time can be set, and no. There is still this weird whining sound like I was writing here. You can see it here. When winding the watch, both wheels are not connected properly. So I was thinking to myself, what can be the reason? So I had a look, and look at this wheel. It's really loose. The screw is tightened down and the wheel can move. And if it can move, there is a possibility that it can jump. So I decided to take apart the watch partly. Just unwind the watch again. You can see me here. You can do it like that too. I think that's the most easiest way to do it. And then we're gonna disassemble the mainspring barrel bridge and have a look if we can remove this kind of wiggling of the wheel. I don't know if it's clear what I was trying to say now, but if we can remove the wiggling, I think the contact will be clean again. So yeah, you can see me removing the bridge here. And now I was thinking to myself, if I could lower the height of the part where the screw is screwed on here, I can screw the screw down a bit more and the wheel is not able to wiggle, or you can't move it. So I just used a little bit of sanding paper here, and took a bit of a material away. And don't be afraid, shorten the whole process here right now, because I was doing this for about 20 times, taking apart material, screwing down the wheel, checking if there was play, and clean everything in between so that there is no material which was sanded away in any kinds. And here you can see me. I also tried to use different kind of tools here to take the material away, but I was always doing at the final step, or I was always using at the final step the sanding paper, and I was always cleaning the bridge after each step, so I just wanted the material not to be in any positions. And now you can see, look at this. The wheel is moving freely and there is no play. It's not jiggling, wiggling, or whatever you would call it. It's really, really tight. Yeah. And now we're just gonna assemble it, and do you hear it? The watch can be winded, so this was the problem, and we were able to solve it. That's a great feeling. But there was another problem. I was happy, and the watch was running, as you can see here. The beat error was high, and I lay it down in my workshop, and on the next day when I came down, the watch was not running, and I was surprised, and I was confused. And I was doing some troubleshooting. I was taking apart the dial side, and you can see me here. I was mounting the balance and have a closer look at the balance. And when I was having a closer look at the balance, I was really surprised, because the balance hairspring, it was not straight. It was some kind of bend up. So I disassembled the balance wheel, including the balance hairspring, and then I was doing something which is really delicate. I was trying to bend the hairspring into its correct position. And this took me, I don't want to lie, I think it took me 4 or 5 hours. And I'm just summarizing the whole process here. And as you can see, I'm so proud of myself, to be honest, because this often does not work out really good. But the balance does look better and better with every time I was bending the mainspring. I'm just using a pair of tweezers and a little oiler and just bend it slightly into a direction and then have a look if it looks better. And I was also correcting the position of the pin at the end of the hairspring, because this one was also not really straight. And this is what I came up with. And just have a look at the spring. It's looking, I think, really good. At least it is looking better than before. And also, it's flat, as you can see. So this was quite a work. I'm just trying to summarize it here, because if I would have filmed every single step, I think I would have terabytes of filming. And you can see here, the mainspring is as flat as I was able to do it, and I think it looks good. But if you have a look, the balance stone at the mainspring here is not positioned in the middle where the pallet fork is positioned. So I had to do another thing. I had to remove the balance hairspring, which I was doing here, turn the mainspring a little bit, and then press it on the mainspring wheel, the balance wheel again. I know this is not maybe the way you should do it, but for me it works, just using a tiny little screwdriver and working my way up and get the mainspring off. For me this works, and I have been doing this in the past a few times this way, and it works really good. When I was dismounting the balance hairspring, I was also using the possibility to correct the position of the pin once again. As you can see, it's not perfectly straight, and I was using this opportunity to do it or to straighten it again. Just remember, I'm doing this under the microscope, so shaking is part of the process. And yeah, then it's time to using another tool I have. Have I already told you about the tools I love about watchmaking? I don't know. So this is the so-called stacking tool. You can do different things with it, but it's also very useful to mount the hairspring on the balance wheel again. So you will see me positioning the balance wheel here in one of these holes so that the roller is not bent up. The roller is the part where the jewel of the balance wheel is positioned. And then I'm gonna take the mainspring, just lie it gently on the balance wheel in the position I think which is correct. So maybe we can get the beat error down. So this is just to get the beat error down. Remember, it was about 4 to 5, and maybe if we can get in the 2 milliseconds region, this would be awesome. Yeah, I know it's not perfect, but for me, remember, this watch is maybe 100 years old or nearly 100 years old. So maybe this would be great. So now we've positioned the mainspring, or the hairspring, not the mainspring. And now we just press it on with the stacking tool, and therefore it's positioned. And now it's the same as in the past. We're just positioning the balance wheel on the balance cock, tighten it down, and then we will install it on the main plate. You can see the hairspring is as flat as I was able to do it, but keep in mind the position of the pin can be adjusted, so the mainspring will be even more flat if I'm gonna position it right. And you could see, I was talking so much, you could see that the jewel of the balance wheel is positioned better. It's not perfectly in the middle, to be honest, but it's better. You know, I could have removed the balance spring again, and I did it one more time and correct the position one more time. But every time you are removing the spring, there is a danger of destroying it. And now we're installing it again. First things first, the watch is running, which is a really good feeling, and it's running in every position now. And that's great. So the repair was, I would say, some kind of a success. And we can proceed now mount the beautiful dial. You know, the longer I see this dial, the more I like it. It's a really beautiful dial, I must admit. I think I would wear this watch all day. I mean, there are also new watches which are beautiful, but this dial, I really like it. What do you think about it? So, now we're gonna place the hands. First, the second hand. Remember, it's a small hand. We're gonna just simply press it on with my special tool. I don't know if I've already talked about the tools and watchmaking. Yeah, no, I have. We are cleaning the old hands a little bit. I know they are not really clean, they're a bit dirty, but I don't want to relume them because I think they fit perfectly to the dial. So I will leave them as they are, just give them a little clean and press the hands on. Just keep in mind that hour and minute hand must be aligned. The second hand is not that important, to be honest. I mean, you could generally speaking, you could align it too, but it's not that important. Yeah, that looks good. Time can be set, and it's really smooth. That's great. I like it. Just checking if the hands don't touch. That's also important. And if they don't touch, you can leave it the way it is. But now we have another thing. We have to see how good the watch is running. Remember, beat error of 4 to 5 and the amplitude. And now it's running at, let's see. Yeah, 6 seconds a day. 250 amplitude is good. Beat error 2.9 is much better. 2 seconds a day. 1 second a day. Wow, 0 seconds a day. That's great. I must admit, remember, the watch is really, really old and it was not running. So this is, for me, it's a really big success. And yeah, and by this success, I was so motivated. I also decided to install a new glass. I'm just kidding. I had to install a new glass because the old one was cracked. If there is a crack, there is, at least, I don't know, there is an easy possibility to fix it. So I have quite a few glasses in here. So I just tried, or I just had a look at my glasses, and I found this one, which has the same shape and size. And now I'm just installing it. The way of installing is pretty easy, just positioning it at the stamp and then pushing down with the press. By pushing down, you're bending it a little bit, and by bending, the diameter decreases, and then you're able to push the casing from the bottom to the glass, and then you can release the glass or the crystal, and it will fit into the casing. So this is a pretty easy way to do it. I'm just speeding a bit forward here because, yeah, you know, watchmaking, you always have to be careful, and most movements are done really, really slow. At least I'm doing them. Yeah, the new crystal looks great. So everything I have to do right now is leave a mark at the bottom of the watch, so that if somebody in the future will service this watch, and I hope this watch will get serviced many, many times and will run many, many years, so that he knows the last time it was serviced was in 2024. So maybe, I was just looking up, and maybe this watch is from the 1930s. So maybe it's nearly 100 years old. That's great. So clean everything using the hand blower and then pressing on the case. And have a look at this watch. I must admit, it's simply gorgeous. It's awesome. And by saying this, I will leave you to the last impressions of this watch. Thank you for watching this video, and I wish you a nice day. Bye.